Spring is in the air at Global Voice Broadcasting. Fresh new shows are hitting the airwaves every day. Shows about all the things that matter to you in your life. Music, fashion, celebs, and more. It's all here, and it's getting better every day. Only at Global Voice Broadcasting.
Needle drop, absolutely.
That's right. Just a little bit of something to kind of start the show off and get it going.
Deal. I love it.
Welcome, everybody, to All Over Voiceover with Kiff VH. This is your host, Kiff VH, and thank you for joining us. And I am thrilled today to welcome to the studio the lovely, the talented Carroll Kimball. Carroll, thank you so much for coming in. Carroll, you own and run Carroll Casting.
Right.
And you're a casting director.
I am a casting director. I've been casting for close to 23 years.
Wow.
And I've had my own business that long. I love it. Love the actors, love the process, love my ad agency clients. I have fun every day.
So I always love coming into your office. When you come to town, I think we met maybe just under 5 years ago when I first came to town, and I was so accustomed to always auditioning at my office, and there is a sense just over at CSD there, but going into a casting director office, there's always just a little bit more of I gotta button up a little bit, and I'm going out to go meet a casting director.
I know, but I think that's good.
Yeah.
I do. I think that, it's great that talent, you guys can audition at home, but when you come in, you might see somebody in the lobby that you kind of go, whoa, he's here too. And it just kind of makes you, step up your game a little bit more sometimes.
Absolutely.
Also, there could be one little, piece of direction that changes your read completely.
Yes.
So I do love it when the actors come in, and you were always a pleasure. I know you're a big improv guy.
Yes.
And I feel like improv talent is a huge part of the VO community. And I love when an agent calls me and says, you should see this actor. He's here, moved in from
like Chicago or what?
Exactly,
Yeah.
whatever.
Gotcha. Yeah.
The minute they say improv, it's like, I'll see him today at 4:00.
Wow.
It's a given. Yeah.
It's that much of that impactful.
Right.
Wow.
Well, only because, in voiceovers, you need to play. You need to be free. And I feel like improv actors have that freedom. They've been trained to just go for it or just to jump in. And that's a huge part of voiceovers, I feel.
What do you think it is about the nature of play? Is it the nature of play? Is it decision making? Is it? One of the things that I try to share with either students that I'm teaching, is I teach over at Second City, both improv and like a little bit of voiceover stuff. But like, try to teach them that look, your choices need to be strong, but they also need to be in a way disposable.
Exactly. So it's a little bit of both. When you look at a script and it's the nosy, goofy neighbor, I love it when an actor has made a choice and they know what they want to do. Yeah. And I will always let them run it their way, and I might love it. And then I might say, I love this guy, but let's do a take two, but make him a little, flat or a little bit drier, or let's make him a little more sarcastic. But you have to make definite choices. It's not just winging it. So a lot of people think that it's just a matter of reading the script and not making a mistake. But you do have to add personality to the read. Like, we want to picture who this guy is.
Yeah.
And I feel like improv actors have that gift.
That's great.
Yeah.
I do feel sometimes like that sense of not fear of making a choice, but like trying to do it right. Because I'm trying to, it feels like to me, if you go in with the expectation as an actor of, I need to get this right, otherwise Carroll will never call me in again, or the ad agency will hate me, or I just won't book it, and so I'm gonna, but it ends up making you stiff.
Exactly, you're too stiff, you're stilted, you're tight, you're closed. Every once in a while, an actor is in the booth, and I will look at them when they're reading through the script, and their hands are straight, just, on the side. And I always think, okay, he's not feeling this, he's not acting, because there's no way he could read the script and just have his hand straight hanging on the side, unless he's a bored, goofy guy.
Right.
So I will, say to the actor, I want you to have a good time. Let's try it, and use your body, throw up your hands. You could shrug your shoulders, and like I'm almost saying, move, which is acting. So, all of that plays into it.
It was a comment that I had. We were just talking about Rick Wasserman out in the lobby, but I had Rick on the show, and it was one of the comments that he made about how animated you have to be in a way in the booth, and that stuff just comes screaming through the microphone.
It does. And I mean, I first met Rick when he moved to LA. He was in Lion King.
Yeah.
And he's a dancer, he's a singer, and all of that has a lot to do with his voiceover career. So many actors have done stage and theater as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of the voiceover talent I see sing. I mean, that's been a huge part of their career. So, I love a little bit of everything. Sometimes there's certain jobs where I need more skill and technique.
Yes.
And it's more of somebody that maybe comes from a broadcasting background, like maybe someone that was an on-air DJ.
Sure.
A fast talker. But then the acting is always there. You never can get away from the acting.
What's your background? How'd you get into casting?
Well, majored in communications. Well, first of all, I'm an LA native.
You are an LA native.
I'm an LA native, so I grew up around a lot of people in the business.
Awesome.
And it doesn't matter what part of town you live in. This is years ago. You're around people in the business. And so I kind of liked the buzz and the feel of people that were in entertainment or produced or TV. So I majored in communications. Went to Pepperdine University.
Oh, great.
And I had an internship at KLOS and KABC, two big stations here in town. I didn't do much but filed stuff and just answered the phones, but still I kind of liked that environment.
Yeah.
I was never in the studio with the DJs or anything, but I kind of thought that was a cool feeling. When I graduated, I was hired by Burt Bars and Kirby, and it's Burt Burtis, Alan Barsman, Jim Kirby, and they were kings of radio comedy. So I was hired to cover the phones, but then they knew I was smart and brilliant and wonderful. So then they promoted me, and I was like their associate producer, so I booked talent, scheduled the studio, typed scripts, did anything they needed me to do, and I was there for 8 years before I started my own business. But every amazing actor that was on Laugh-In, from Gary Owens to, all these great people, were the guys that my bosses used all the time. Artie Johnson.
Oh my God.
Like those
Ruth
70s
Buzzy
TV.
and
right,
yeah.
exactly. Ruth Buzzy gave me a little statue saying, "Did a bird tell you how sweet you are?" And something that I have. I'll show it to you next time you're in my office.
Awesome.
It's amazing.
Oh my God.
It's amazing. But anyway, but yes, all those wonderful actors. I was looking at The Godfather the other night, and Gino Conforti is the guy at the very beginning of The Godfather that's like the baker.
Yeah.
He baked the wedding cake. I mean, and I said to myself, wow, Gino was always, the Italian chef or the maitre d' at the restaurant in all their spots. And I used to see him all the time.
Yeah.
So I grew up in the business watching amazing actors working all the time. And that's what it takes.
Is it just actively staying in it and working on every part of your craft?
Exactly. I think so. And as you know, so many actors they're so successful in voiceovers, they book out of on camera. Like they think, well, wait a minute, if I could, make this kind of money and be happy and content and I don't have to go in front of a camera, why would I? So many actors just say, no more on camera for me. This is going to be my field and my world. So I think they have to work a little bit harder to kind of keep thinking, I'm an actor, because you could lose the acting.
Yeah.
I could bring somebody in, and I could have seen a commercial you did years ago where you're like the funny soccer dad or something. And you could come in the office or an audition, and it could be kind of straight. And I'll say, no, let's do a take 2 where you're like that dad on that commercial you did. Now, actors make fun of themselves. They go, oh, Carroll, that means you would want me to act. Oh, okay, well, let me do it again where I'm going to act.
Yeah.
So the acting you do forget.
Yeah.
And you do kind of just start reading it without a mistake and then going to the next script. And I think when actors read at home a lot, that does happen.
I agree. I feel like it's really easy to fall into that trap of Pat Frilio has talked about, turning into narcissists when you're hearing your own voice and falling in love with the nice tones of how rich my voice is. And all of a sudden it's like, you've just completely lost the guy next door or the reason why we like you in the first place.
Exactly. It could be too much. Actors, they live all over the place. So sometimes I request somebody to audition that lives really far. Uh-huh. And they drive in and they kind of look at me like, okay, Carroll, I drove in. Here I am. But when they're done in 5 minutes, they always say, thank you. I would have read this 50 times at home. Yeah. And what you told me was just nothing. I don't know what I would have done. I might have done too much. So, just to keep it simple and to keep it real. It's good to come in a little bit and read at home. Yeah. But you can never forget that you're an actor. Yeah.
I agree, and it's really easy to let yourself.
It is.
Forget those things, right. And I've felt, I don't know where it necessarily comes from, but like it may be from just how I grew up. About like you can't. You talk about like the on-camera folks who are like, you know what, I'm done. I'm just going to chase my VO stuff now. Right. I feel like that's a luxury that you may be able to afford today.
Exactly.
But the one thing I've learned, the one truth is that campaigns have a bad habit of going away.
Absolutely.
And
I think, I'm not an actor, but if I was an actor, I would do everything.
Yeah.
I would do everything. I would stay in all of it. You could book out of on-camera. If you're busy in voiceovers, you could step back in. But if you don't have an on-camera agent or a theatrical agent, I know it's not easy getting a theatrical agent these days, but call the last one that you had and say, listen, I'm thinking about going out again. Yeah. And you could stay busy doing a little bit of everything. Yeah. Some of the most amazing actors loop and are in ADR sessions daily. Yeah. And sometimes I run into an actor and I'll say, what have you been up to? Oh, Carroll, I've been looping. But almost like, oh, it's no big deal. And I think that's a huge deal. Yeah. I feel like anyone that loops and that is called in for the loop groups, like they're talented actors that can make definite choices. You have to.
You have to.
You have to be able to ad-lib, improvise. It's all just coming to you quickly.
Yes.
You have to know a lot about the world and what's in it and what's around us. You've got to do your research. So I respect all of it.
Yes.
So I think looping, and listen, I always have people saying, hey, Carroll, how do people get in loop groups? So, there's looping, there's animation, of course. Yeah. Animation is wonderful. Most of the producers and directors get used to using a lot of the same people, but they get used to using the same people because these people are amazing.
Yes.
They're brilliant.
There's a reason why these guys call them all the time.
There's a reason why. And then it's nice to mix it up a little bit. But I feel like if somebody does want to pursue a voiceover career and they think, well, God, I want to be one of those animation guys, you got to keep working at your craft. You got to keep training, understanding who you are as an actor. You've got to be able to play. So, they should call you for your improv classes. They need to constantly work out because it's not a matter of doing voices.
Right.
It's understanding the character. And it's the personality that comes through. And then when you act a certain way, you sound a certain way. And then a voice comes with that. And so, but once again, that's what acting is.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people probably do voices, but it's great if I bring somebody in for an animated character and they go, oh, God, Carroll, there's this guy that I do. Or there's this girl that I do. Let me try her. But it's a personality. It's a character that they've developed.
Right.
It's like somebody that they do. So it's not just finding a voice. Because it's forced when you just think I'm going to talk like this, or I'm going to talk like an old man, or I'm going to talk like, you have to act like that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to keep going back to the acting.
That's so great to hear. Every time I talk in a class setting or someone is like, I know you're doing voiceovers. People tell me I have a great voice, and that's wonderful. You have an amazing instrument. But if you think about using that metaphor, that if you can play saxophone and you can play scales, awesome. But can you bring soul to you? What's your phrasing?
Exactly. What is your style? What is your... Yeah, exactly. Did you play the saxophone growing up?
I didn't. I played the baritone and then the tuba.
Oh, okay.
My mother told me my lips were too big to play anything bigger than anything smaller than a trombone, the big
so
bell.
funny.
And she's true, but like
Right.
all of my brothers, once I had a baritone, because the baritone is an expensive instrument, then we all play the baritone. And I'm the oldest of 5, so all brothers play the baritone.
Oh my
and
God,
then
that's unbelievable.
I really wanted to play the drums, but that just wasn't happening.
Well, I did grow up in a musical family,
Really?
and one day, one of my old teachers said, I heard that you cast voices, so you've got to listen. And I'm sure your training as a musician has something to do with you, the way you listen. Maybe, I don't know, but I feel like all of that's a part of us. I played the violin when I was 7 years old. My sisters play strings. We had a family quartet. We used to always argue.
That's
But
awesome.
I played the violin even in college. I got a partial music scholarship to go to Pepperdine.
Yeah.
And in high school, I'm in the orchestra pit. And, you're rolling your eyes because, we wanted to go home. We had homework, but we had to run another number for one of the actors.
Yeah.
And so all of that helped me to even understand the process. Of course, we did, West Side Story, Brigadoon, the typical shows that you do in college. And, we some of the actors couldn't leave until they got it right. You had to run a number 3 or 4 times, and they want the orchestra there with them. So I got to see a lot of direction. I got to see the process happen and take place. So it's good for me. So anyway, I feel like musically, it has a lot to do with the way I listen, or maybe I listen to a voice like an instrument. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it is a part of my story. So
That's really cool. I think that's important that people don't discount experiences that they've had. I can't get over how many things, even just random stuff that in the moment doesn't seem like it would in any way, shape, or form inform what you do.
it happens all the time.
Right?
I'm shocked. I hear something about an actor. I'm like, and I don't know this. I mean, do your agents know this? Well, no, it doesn't matter. Every part of you is a part of your life, a part of your story, a part of something that you can grab hold of as a performer. And so sometimes someone will say, oh, Carroll, I used to do blah, blah, blah. I'm like, or whatever it is. They think it's not important, but I always say everything about you is important.
Yeah.
Everything about you brings about an experience.
Yes.
And I say that all the time. There was an actress I met earlier today, and I auditioned her on a piece of copy, and I could tell that she was doing a warm read, like she's new to the business. She's an actress, just got an agent, but I said, your natural personality, you naturally are really cute and you're funny and you're perky. When I was talking to you before you came into the booth, I loved what I heard. I would love to hear her on the script.
Yeah.
And she was like, ooh, I'm not sure I know how to do that. And I'm like, well, just figure out a way to be more yourself, more natural. And, thousands of people are doing voiceovers now, thousands. I mean, if you go to different agencies, you look at the rosters, how do you stand out?
Yeah.
But you're you. That's how you stand out.
Right.
Being yourself stands out these days.
Your authentic voice
Exactly.
is what,
Exactly. So I think that that's more important than anything. And sometimes agents will say, hey, Carroll, if you're not busy, listen to some of these demos. And I will listen, and I will call the agent, and I will say, well, I love 3 of these guys. But this one guy, I don't think I know who he is. When I say that, I mean, I hear him doing the reads, but I didn't hear him. I didn't hear a personality. I kind of want to hear, oh, God, he's funny, or he's kind of quirky. And, how do I know that without knowing the guy? You just know what's real and what's not real.
Yeah.
You just know what's more authentic. So I do like to hear the personality of the actors. I like to get to know them.
Yeah. That's interesting to think about, too, that as someone is going about the business of putting together a demo, that they make certain that's of paramount importance, right?
Huge. It's huge. The first spot should be them just talking about something, where you just really hear them. And then maybe the second spot could be something kind of fun and silly or playful. But then I would say go back to you a little bit, and then maybe play a little bit more. But, at the end of the minute and a half listening to the demo, I want to be able to hear that person's personality.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. It could be, dry. It could be monotone, like Lorenzo music.
Yeah.
Left Lorenzo, Garfield the cat.
Yeah.
Lorenzo was just being Lorenzo. And he made, millions of dollars. Just being Lorenzo.
Yeah.
And we know his story was director, producer. He worked on the, he was Carlton the doorman.
Yeah.
And that's how it started. He was working on that show and he tried that voice and it stuck. Then, years later, he had a huge voiceover career. And for 20 some odd years, he made a fortune being Garfield the cat.
Yeah.
But he was just himself.
Yeah.
And so if you think about all these amazing actors that really have, Don LaFontaine, Don was just being
Don
himself.
was being Don.
He was being himself.
Yeah.
And I can go on and on and on about the actors that have done really, really well. But when you talk to them, that's how they sound. I mean, even with you, you have a great personality. You're friendly. You're like this great everyday guy that's really up for the day. Mm-hmm. Optimistic, upbeat, a lot of energy. And I know you can do a lot more than that, but that guy is a great guy. That guy can make a lot of money. I mean, and he has made you a lot of money.
Yeah.
But that's a great guy. And so sometimes I think actors work too hard to find something else where they could just be themselves.
Yeah.
And be really funny and be really talented and be, all that they need to be to book jobs.
What's so cool and strange about hearing you say that from over here on this side of the table is hearing you describe my personality to me back.
Right.
Based on, and we know each other a little bit, but we've been colleagues more so than anything else.
Exactly.
But talking about who I am based on what you observe in my voice.
Right. Exactly.
That's fascinating to me. And
now tell me, is your personality much different than what I said?
Absolutely not. It's exactly my personality.
Okay.
I'm very look, we've all got our down days and stuff like that. But generally, I kind of approach the day with let's see what today's gonna hold.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. You walk into my office like that. You always have, and so and listen, casting directors. We see a lot of actors. We see a lot of people. We know people, and you always know when someone's trying to be that, and that always makes me a little bit sad too, because everyone does an audition well. Everyone's not up for it. People are going through things. But when you walk in my office, I love the actors just to, look at the script. I simply tell them what I'm looking for. I want them to go in the booth and play. It shouldn't be stressful. It shouldn't be uncomfortable. And I grew up with a lot of actors that are my friends. And personally, I know what it's not always easy.
No.
Sometimes you have a full day of auditions and you just got rejected on something that you really wanted. And you're just bummed out. But then you got to let that go and just walk in that next office and just do your thing,
I very much feel like the course of a day is like being in a way a cab driver or being, it's the nature of freelance. You're everything is project based.
Exactly.
And we have these micro transactions every day. You go either to like today I had a rehearsal and I had a couple auditions and then this and another thing, and each of those things will begin and they will end.
Of course.
And they need to be isolated. You need to protect that in a way.
Yeah, you do. And I'm freelance. I'm not an actor, but I bid for jobs sometimes, and I'll give an estimate, and they'll talk to me about something. They could decide to go directly to agents. They could decide to go to another casting office, or they could decide to work with me. But you just have to know, okay, I'm not supposed to do that one. The next one's coming.
You have to trust
I can just kind of move my furniture around in my office or do something different or invoice or whatever. But, you just have to love it enough to love the disappointment. And we all have moments where we're disappointed.
Yeah.
And I'm always amazed with all the actors that have moved to Los Angeles. I'm an LA native, like I told you, but so many people have moved here with this dream to be in the business. And you never know what that business is going to be.
Right.
You don't know what it's going to be. I mean, some people are A-list puppeteers.
Right.
Some people are like the best hand model in the world.
Right.
Some people are, they show their feet in print ads. I mean, people do a little bit of everything, from stunt people to body movement. And, voiceovers is another surprise for a lot of people because they didn't really know about it until they moved here.
Yeah.
And then they could be working on a commercial and someone says, your voice sounds great. And why don't you try this line? And they booked them, and then they got a voiceover agent based on that.
Yeah.
Then they got serious about the career, but you don't know where your career is going to lead you. You just don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know.
And it's important to be open to it. And when we were working in Cleveland, one of the assistants at the talent agency we were at, both Sherry and I interned there from time to time or helped out. When things were slow, they're like, we have a burst of call outs. Would you just come in and man the phones? That kind of a thing. And they throw us a couple bucks. It was nice, to be able to just kind of help ease some of the pressure.
Right.
And one of the things that Brad always said was, people have to, you got to love the career you're having, not have the career not be upset about the career you think you should be having.
Oh, right. Absolutely.
And it was like, it really resonated and made sense and kind of helped set an attitudinal shift and stuff.
Right. There's some actors that I see and I'm smiling because they make me laugh. They're just at peace with who they are. They just walk in and hey, Carroll, and they're just chilling. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And those guys work a lot because it just is what it is, but they're just really at peace with who they are. They know what they do. And it could be this one thing or this one kind of character that's helped them make a really nice living, and they're just easy and breezy.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for that.
Yeah.
I know it's easy to be that way, listen, it doesn't mean that life's. It's the right attitude. I see a lot of actors with the wrong attitude.
Yeah.
And I want to say the business has changed a lot. And sometimes a client might say, Carroll, just bring your top 10 guys. I don't need to see 20 guys. Well, the actors that are coming in don't know if I'm seeing 10, 20, 30, 3 days worth or what.
Right.
But you might be one of this handful. You might be one of 5 guys I wanted to see on something.
Yeah.
And not that you've got to be happy when you walk in, but you kind of know the people that want to be there and the people that don't.
Yeah, I understand.
And every once in a while, an agent might say to me, "Oh, Carroll, who you should see." And I'm thinking, I don't think he likes auditioning. I'm very honest. I'm thinking, I don't think he really wants to audition.
Wow.
Oh, wow. What makes you say that? I'm like, well, every time he comes in, I feel like he just feels like it just interrupted his day.
Wow.
And, there's so many people that are ready just to jump in the car and really do it. And they know that auditioning is a huge part of an actor's job.
Yes.
To audition well and to be available to do that as much as possible. But if it's a matter of bringing in a guy that's really, really good that doesn't like auditioning, or a guy that's really good that always is just ready to show up, I'm going to see the guy that's happy and just shows up.
Yeah.
So, I think there are a lot of different things that that actors should pay attention to. And listen, you have to be up for whatever it is. And sometimes there are callbacks in voiceovers.
Yeah.
And it could be a little bit annoying. And I'm very protective of the actors. Like sometimes a client might say, Carroll, we want to make sure the actor we pick has a nice range. So they want the actor to read 3 or 4 scripts. And I will say to the agency, that's really uncomfortable for me. I'm going to bring in guys that are really amazing, very successful actors. I would never want them to read, this many. Maybe 2, but
sure.
Why don't you demo them and bring them in to direct them later?
Yeah.
So I'm very protective of what the business is about and what it stands for. I take pride in what I do, and I protect the actors as well.
That's awesome. Thank you for that.
I love you guys.
We love you.
I do. I love you guys.
What is your process for just for me, it's helpful to know how I can best serve you and your needs as someone who is essentially a vendor to you.
Right.
So when you get the phone rings and it's someone who says, Carroll, we'd like Carroll to cast this for us.
Right.
Let's say it's this paper cup company, and and it's a 30-second television spot.
Right.
And the demo is like we're looking at men.
So
what would be your process?
They will tell me what kind of men they're looking for. And one thing that's very interesting, they usually have a definite person or type of guy in mind. Sometimes it's the same kind of guy that's on camera.
Gotcha.
They will say, hey, Carroll, this guy is the kind of guy that drives this car. He's got a wife. He's got kids. I mean, this guy is a person in their mind. He exists. And so with that guy comes a voice. And I sometimes, as I'm talking to the creative directors, I start thinking of people that are exactly that guy.
Interesting.
And I start laughing. I'm like, oh my God, I know who this guy is. And I start mentioning names. Oh, wow, he'd be great. And so sometimes it's a conversation of the back and forth of people that we're thinking about together.
Yeah.
So once that call is over, I start thinking of actors. But I like it to come to me. I don't go to my computer and just look at a guy list. I don't go to the talent agents. I really, by the specs and reading the script, I start thinking of the people that I can hear doing it.
Yeah.
And that's always really fun for me. Sometimes in the middle of my session, I think of somebody else that would even be more exciting than the guys that I have coming in.
Huh.
And I will tell my assistant, call, this agency and see if he can make it over here before 5 today.
Yeah.
And it's always funny. Actors always say to me, Carroll, when did this call go out? Because my agent just called me. And I always say, no. They didn't make a mistake. And I'm always honest. It's like I was casting and I was running the session, but I felt like I heard you. And I really wanted you to come in and do this. And sometimes that's the person that booked it. I mean, I hear that person so much. Yeah. Whereas I hear other people, with this kind of read, I start really channeling a certain actor.
That's really fascinating.
So, yeah, it usually just comes to me. Now, every once in a while, there's something with skill and technique involved. That's a little bit different. Some guys are known for doing amazing legal tags. They talk fast. A lot of the promo and trailer actors are used to speed and accuracy.
Gotcha.
So every day is a different day.
Yeah.
That's what's so fun about it.
Awesome.
Sometimes it's a major animation role, where I need the guys that really do characters. But I always like to mix it up with natural characters with guys who are real characters. So it's fun.
Fantastic. So you have your session, you record everybody,
right.
and then what happens?
Then I will send a link of the auditions to my client, and sometimes they listen right away. Sometimes it's a committee of people listening. Sometimes it's 3, like the writer, the producer, or the creative director listening. And they will get an email. I'll get an email back or a call. Oh, we like these guys. Or sometimes the writer says he wants to have a conversation with me. So, and this is what's very interesting about the process. Sometimes they'll say, Carroll, we listened to this guy, David. Is he really kind of a slick used car salesman guy? I mean, he sounds like he was doing a voice. Is he really like that? So the writer is listening, but he's curious about what's behind the read. And sometimes they'll ask me about the different actors that are doing it. Like they might pick the 3 people that they like, but we'll have a conversation about that. So they are really listening in a way that you wonder, well, how would he know that read was put on because it's forced or something too big about it?
Yeah.
And so that's when I started directing actors differently, because I said, well, God, they could really hear that something's fake. And so I'll say to an actor, let's do a take 2, but just really just kind of just throw it away. Just be more yourself.
Yeah.
So after that, they might narrow down to 3 people. Usually, most of the time, 2 voices are presented. The first choice at the ad agency, then a backup that the client might like, but they always know who they want to use.
Interesting.
And if for some reason the client said, I don't know, is there anybody else? They always have a backup person.
Gotcha.
To present. But it's interesting because everybody hears voices differently.
Yeah.
So sometimes the writer and the producer don't like the same actor, or they don't like the same voice, but then they leave it up to the client. So I work for the ad agencies.
Okay.
So, for instance, there's the Toyota client, as we know, and the ad agency for Toyota is Saatchi, and then you've got all the creatives under that. So sometimes the Toyota client's very involved, and sometimes the Toyota client is going to be at the sessions. So it depends. Different aspects of it are different.
Wow, that's so fascinating. And there's so many moving parts.
Right.
And, and our interface is a piece of paper with a small description, which is playable, which is how kind of we would want it. Otherwise, you would totally be stressed out.
Well, listen, this is what I also say. I mean, sometimes an ad guy's career is on the line for this campaign. He sold this concept to the client who's not so sure about it. And so I think we could do this. And I think this character will be goofy and strange and weird. So there's pressure on me. They'll say, Carroll, either the voice is going to make it or break it. Wow. And we talk the client into this. So I want to try it all these different ways because we've got to find something that's going to work.
Yeah.
And so you're right. when everybody walks in like, oh, okay, let me look at this. Okay, I'm ready. You know, it's my job to bring the importance of it to you.
Yes.
It's my job.
Yeah.
To say, look, this is kind of a tricky spot. This is a weird thing. We're going to try it a few different ways. But someone's career is, you know, riding on the fact that this campaign is going to work. We're going to find the right voice that works. So, there are a few layers that I think people overlook.
Yeah, I
They
agree.
overlook it a little bit.
And, you know, to a certain extent, you know, I'm happy to overlook it. But at the same time, it's good to know that, you know, I'll treat a piece. Not that I would be any more glib or be
you
like.
You might not do any more, but just to pay a little bit more attention.
Yeah.
That's all.
Especially if it's one of those things where like we really want a natural, casual, relaxed read.
Right.
And I've been in the booth a couple times with things where it's like ready to do your casual, and this isn't even an audition. This isn't the job, you know, doing the job. Like ready to give us a nice, casual, relaxed read because there's jobs on the line. And you're like, thanks for giving me that.
Right.
But, you know, you get to a point, too, where you're like, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I don't even, when I'm casting, if I'm casting for the new voice of an account, I don't even say it anymore. I feel like it's too much pressure or it makes everybody think about it too much.
Yeah.
You know, or it doesn't help.
Yes.
But you never know when it is going to be the voice of an account. And also one day that was really funny. An actor walked in and I thought he was, of course, anyone that walks in my office, I feel like they're right for the job.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, radio. Oh, okay, radio. And he made the point like almost like, oh, radio. I don't really read radio. So he goes on and on about radio, but you know, sometimes when they're casting for the voice of the radio account, that guy's going to do the TV as well.
Yeah.
You know, and no job is too little, too small because things blow up. And sometimes they want to try you out on a brand that's just regional, but they have this national account, or that ad agency gets that big account and they're like, oh, wow, let's get the guy that we used on the blah, blah, blah. And, you know, so you've got to, you know, you just want to pay attention to all of it.
Yeah. And not be dismissive of the things that come to you.
Exactly.
I mean, the demos that have turned into other things that I've personally experienced have been like, oh my gosh.
Right.
And there are guys who are like, go into their folder and go, demo. Like, I got out of bed to do a demo.
Exactly.
You got to come into a room and audition and compete against most people who don't have this opportunity.
Right. I think auditioning is great. I know people want to just get the jobs, but you know, it's part of the process it's part of the process completely. And meaning you have to read at your agents, you've got to read at you got to read somewhere.
Yeah.
Even if you audition at home, auditioning is just a part of it now. And so I hope most actors find a way to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because it's part of what they have to do.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes a client will call me and will say, you know, Carroll, we're doing some spots for a client and it's free, or we're giving back this time of year, and they might do some pro bono spots for Partnership for Drug Free America or something.
Gotcha.
And they will say, will you cast? There's no money involved, but just, and I'm like, yes. Well, I still want to nail it. I'm not getting paid, but I want to find this amazing voice for what they want me to do because they're going to still know that I'm really great at what I do.
Yes.
So even if I'm not getting paid, I take pride in casting and knowing talent and finding the right voice for whatever it is they're working on.
Right. And I feel that way about the auditions that I do.
Right.
I'm not paid for those auditions.
Right.
But there is that sense of pride, and like, if you get an audition from me, it's gonna at least it's going to sound good, and you're gonna get the best shot that I got in that moment in time to try to make it sound right.
Right.
You know.
Tell me, you know, I always think it's got to be a challenge when actors are reading copy at home. And you might have a video game, you might have a narration piece, you might have a commercial, and then you might have a promo.
Yeah.
But when you're talented, the agents will send you all those different reads. And I always think, do you read it all at one time, or do you kind of do part of it later? I'm sure every day is different.
Every day is different, but like yesterday, for example, I taught last night, and I had some shouty copy that I had to get done, and it was due to this morning.
Okay.
I just didn't have a window of time to do it, so I actually had time from 4 to 5 yesterday afternoon.
Okay.
And I sort of order them based on vocal stress.
Right.
So if I need
smart.
to,
I love that.
it works for me, and then volume. So like, because I had narrated a couple books in my little studio that's surrounded by the wonderful clothing that works as foam.
Okay, no, it's perfect.
And yeah, I'm happy with the quality of the reads that I get. But I would, start off if it's got to be warm and have a lot of texture and warmth and stuff, or it's casual friendly, which is generally the specs that I get. I'll do that. And then if it there was a voice match for an actor I can't mention, but it was a really gruff voice.
Okay.
So. But looking at the nature of the copy I had, it would benefit me to rough my voice up a little bit for the next chunk of copy.
Right, sure.
So I did build a little bit of a running order for it.
Right.
But I didn't have time, so I did everything raw and left the edit until I got home at night.
Okay.
So I wouldn't anger my neighbor like I did the other night working on an on-camera self-tape.
Oh, wow.
Because we got a kid, and there's school and taekwondo and schedules and dinner, and then I want to spend time, but then it's like, how it is.
Right.
So
now it's crazy. That's crazy.
But that was my process of just kind of ordering it. And I prefer to go in. I prefer the direction because I'll just go down the rabbit hole of, I'll do 8 takes on something that I probably would have, you just get good at pattern recognition.
Right. Of course. It's so funny. I'm spoiled with starting the business when I'm coming up in the business where everybody did come to the office.
Yeah.
And on a given day, if someone can read at home, I don't mind that. But sometimes the bigger jobs, you've got to sign an NDA.
Yep.
A non-disclosure agreement,
yeah.
meaning we can't say anything. So you've got to come to my office. I can't send the copy out. And I'm not trying to be such a goody two-shoes, but I always think that if I let somebody read at home, if that actor books it, and then they're having the conversation when everyone forgets about the NDA, and somebody just says, "Oh wow, we were so glad you were able to read. We loved your audition." It's like, yeah, well, I read at home, and I'm glad. I just feel like, I don't know if that will ever come up or not, but when my clients ask me to sign an NDA, I just don't send the copy out.
And who wants it coming back on you? You're trying to maintain that the actor is representing you when they've booked that job.
Right. So, that's tricky sometimes, but when I have actors read at home, and I rarely do it, I get the audition back, and I usually would have had him do it differently.
Oh.
So I kind of stopped because I feel like I'm wasting his time, and then I get it back, and I'm like, ooh.
Yeah.
God, he was like, maybe he just did a promo because he's really pumped, and it's really loud, and it's big And listen, I don't want to have to direct people over the phone. It's not what it's about.
Right.
But it usually isn't what I like. Ooh, there it is.
Have you ever done that where you've been send an email back to the agent saying, I'm glad he did that and that was awesome, but I'd love another take? But that just seems like so much.
I've never gone back. I don't go back. And but one thing I will say to the agent, I will say, listen, I'm so glad he laid it down. I'm like, but you know what? I would have had him closer to the mic. Less volume, whatever, something different.
Yeah.
So it's really tricky because sometimes I don't know until that actor's in the booth with me.
Yeah.
When we kind of create together. So it's tricky. It's hard. And I know people are working at home too. So sometimes they really can't leave. And so much work is if you've got, a home studio, you're working in that studio and you can't afford to leave and come back. So we're going to figure it out.
We'll figure it out. And you have to sometimes you got to be okay with letting certain things go by if you can't make it work.
Right. If you can't make it, you can't make it. Sometimes you just have to let it go.
And it's that, that hits the blue collar part of me, that kind of answer every call. You know what I mean?
No, I don't let anything go.
I don't want to leave any money on the table.
Exactly.
I got to at least chase. But I had a theatrical audition that I was trying to move something to accommodate for, and they were like, I'm sorry, this is what it is. Right. Pulling the plug on something else and coming in. And I said, I'm sorry, I was trying to make something else work. And, but I'm thankful that you didn't move my time, because you would have gotten a worse read from me. You would have gotten a worse read from me because I was trying to. It's like carrying a big platter full of 10 dishes and someone saying, "Can you carry one more on there?"
Right.
Then I'm like, "Yeah, great," but now all 11 dishes are in danger of crashing.
Right. It's like it's not worth it. You've got to let something go.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to.
That's a difficult decision to make.
It's a tough decision. It is. It's tough to make. But you have to, because everything else is going to, it's going to be a bad day because you didn't let one thing go.
One thing.
And it's going to be that one thing that's in Santa Monica or at the other end of the earth or Forest Lawn Drive or something where you just kind of go, you know what? I don't think it's going to work. I think that's smart. You have to. You have to be able to know when you've got to let something go.
Yeah. In a way, it preserves your brand and preserves your ability to know, like, I don't want to turn in an 80% thing.
Right. You know, I don't leave my office often, but every once in a while, clients in Santa Monica, I get on the freeway and I'm like, oh, wow, this is what everybody goes through. Because I'm spoiled. My office that I had, my new office is close to home.
Right.
But I've been 5 minutes from my house for the last 20 years.
Wow.
And so I'm not on a freeway, and I'm amazed because also I think, well, the actors have to get to that location and then be pleasant and be ready to perform.
Yeah.
And that's got to be tough. The traffic is unbelievable.
Can I tell you, like, the thing that has helped me the most, honestly, was my time in the Midwest. Okay. I was living in Cleveland. There was no union work in Cleveland. Okay. There was some, but very little, and I didn't get those auditions that often. Most of my work was in Detroit. Okay. And I drove to Detroit 3 times a week to audition.
Wow.
So that was a 6-hour round trip. So a 45-minute commute from Santa Monica to Burbank for a voice match audition.
Wow.
Oh, that's nothing. And with podcasting and music, like, but you get accustomed to that. When people, there's that old joke about, like, you know, someone saying, you know, what's the job? I'll fly wherever across the world to go do it. That's awesome. Where's the audition? Oh, it's at Santa Monica at 4 o'clock. Nah, I can't make that work. And so it does come back to, you know, Sean Connery saying in The Untouchables to Kevin Costner, what are you prepared to do? Are you prepared to drive a little bit and find a way? It's
I know.
You know, it's just the nature of this town, and you just, you know, I embrace it.
Right. Actors from Detroit are so... Wow, they're amazing. They work so hard. They're so focused. And I want to say, you driving in like that, I mean, I want to say that's part of what you grew up doing. I mean, Bella Reese is a second mom to me. I know she's amazing. She's from Detroit.
Yeah.
And the other day, she was saying to me she has a script, and she's always thinking and always wanting to do. She's 84 years old, but never is not thinking about doing the next thing. And then she'll say, you know, you've never got me a voiceover agent. I still need to do some of that voiceover stuff. So many people that I know that are Detroit people are just hard workers. And they are always thinking about the work, but they're happy.
Yeah.
You know, they're happy about it. It doesn't feel like work. Doesn't feel like work.
I was telling students the other night, like, when you're in Detroit, you get a national spot would come through maybe once every 2 months that you would audition for.
Sure.
And then when I made the transition to Chicago, it was national work daily.
Right.
And just the opportunity.
Right.
You know, Sherry and I are both huge basketball fans, and like that was like all I want is just the opportunity to take an outside shot. If it goes in, that's on me, or it doesn't. Or maybe I got blocked or whatever, but just give me the ball. Just give me an opportunity to take a shot. And that was, you know, I think what was great about coming up in Detroit during that time. Right. Where our agents were marvelous, and because it's an industry town, it makes this transition to another industry town pretty easy.
Right. No, it's amazing. I don't know. Do you know Rodney Salisbury?
I do.
Oh, okay. Rodney's a Detroit native.
Yeah.
And Rodney has written 3 voiceover books. So when he finished one book, he was already on the next one. I'm like, let this one get out into the world.
Let it sell. Yeah.
But then he had another idea, and then he was writing the second book. But I feel like that's what, you know, the actors that I know and the people that I know from Detroit, they have that kind of work ethic. And then he wrote a 3rd book and 3 voiceover books. I mean, and he's very, very talented and does a lot of work, and he's very focused, but it's like when it's there, you just got to keep it moving, keep it rolling. And I'm amazed by that.
That's so cool. Can I ask you about demos in terms of the what you told me earlier, and I thought was really astute I think too for the people listening to this to hold that in mind as they go about the business, if they don't already have a demo to produce it with, making certain that the reel really sounds like that that it introduces them to you in a way.
Right, absolutely.
How important is all the bells and whistles of production to you, and to make it sound like, oh, this sounds like an actual spot? Or is it more about, is there a happy medium? And if there's, self-produced demos versus stuff that you get done by some of the fantastic demo producers in town?
Right. Well, most of the demos will be sent, an agent will send demos to me with new actors that they represent. A lot of people will still call me and say, can I send an MP3? I don't have an agent yet. And I always say yes. So I give them an email address where all the demos go. So I don't listen all the time, but I will finally say, you know what? Let me just listen to some of these demos today. Let me just see what's out there. I like to hear the personality of the person first and foremost. I want it to be professional. I want it to sound like it was in a good studio where there's a decent microphone.
Yeah.
It needs to have, I want to say, audio integrity. It should, if you're going to be in this business, if you're going to be a part of the business, then, get somebody that is going to produce your demo correctly.
Yeah.
Like we talked about needle drop music.
Right.
Or, stock music in the background that fits the product.
Yeah.
And they should sound like real commercials. It's always fun for me if I meet somebody and I say, hey, I listened to your demo. I really liked it. Were those real spots?
Yeah.
That's what you want an agent that you're meeting to ask you.
Yeah.
And if you send your demo to me and I bring you in, you want us to ask you, wow, are those real spots? Did you book those?
Yeah.
And then you want to say, well, no, they were created for my demo. Like I had a demo producer put them together.
Yeah.
But they should sound like real commercials. And so that's the quality, the recording, the music in the background, and the way it's mixed. I know there are a lot of different ways things are done these days. But as long as the end result is a professional sound, that's the most important thing.
Gotcha.
Right away, if I, click play and it just sounds tinny, and
overdriven,
echoey,
and
yes, right,
pops and all that
or
stuff.
the music's way too hot and it's not, So you want it to be professional, and it should sound like those are real jobs.
Great. Yeah. It's a tough thing, but it's necessary.
It's necessary. And to me, if you really love this business, you really want to be a part of it, you're going to find the right people, starting with your agent, or you're going to find your friends that do well in the business and say, hey, where would you go for this? Or I always tell actors, start asking around, and you're going to hear the same names mentioned after a while.
Yeah.
And people that you trust, people that are successful, and your agents. They will always tell you good people to go to for demos or classes or anything like that. A lot of people are doing a lot of things that aren't really on top of it. They might not really know what to do. So it's, if you spend the money, time, and effort, get a referral from, like I said, your manager, your agent, or your friends that are successful.
That's great.
Friends that are making some money.
Yes. And they'll, I find the community to be very open with information, and sharing and supportive and encouraging.
Yeah. No, I feel like the voiceover community, very supportive of each other.
Yeah.
Very respectful. And it's a really great side of the business because of course there's competition, but I don't know. Everybody's very respectful of one another and their talent.
Yeah.
Like in my office, somebody will walk in and they'll say, oh, no, that's the guy that does it. That's the one that should really do this. We should just leave. Right. And so, it's nice. They really kind of, compliment each other.
Yeah.
And sometimes actually will say, Carroll, listen, I'm going to tell you 3 guys that can do this better than me.
Wow.
And, this is not my thing. But an actor that says that is very confident with what he does do.
Yes.
That's why he's able to give it to somebody else.
That's a great point. It's not just this altruism. It's also like, you know what? Hey, look, this guy nails this type of a read.
But he knows what he does, so he has no problem saying,
Yeah.
So once again, confidence in what you do and what you do best and what you do well.
Yeah.
I also think that you're going to work more right now if you know this one thing that you do really, really well. You're going to just nail a certain kind of read. If it's a cool, laid-back guy, and you could just kind of add him to a lot of stuff. Or if you're just the warm, friendly, whatever that is, you just start booking that guy all the time. I mean, there's certain reads that people have settled into, and it's really very close to their natural sound. And they've booked one national campaign with that voice. I'm thinking, well, why don't you kind of add him to something else? Or I will bring in an actor based on that campaign that I love. And I'll say, you know what, I want you to do this blah, blah, blah read for this product. Oh, really? Okay, that's a good idea. And I think actors are so innocent. They forget all the great work that they do. Yeah. Think about your biggest campaigns. Think about, the work that you've done that's been, well respected, or that's made you some really, good money. That character is probably someone you don't think about that you could use for a lot of the stuff that you're doing right now.
That's really true.
You could reinvent him. You could bring him back, and you could maybe make him a little bit more, 2016, but you could keep reinventing these characters.
It feels like I know for myself, it's like, well, I did that. I don't want to necessarily go back and go do that. Well, it's like, well, that was working. That was stupid to not do that role.
I see it all the time. You kill what's working. It's like, it's working. That guy is amazing.
Yeah.
And don't get rid of him, keep him going. But that happens quite a bit. But even listen, we look at feature films and an actor is famous for doing all this, and all of a sudden it's like, what is he? But you say, what is he doing?
Right.
Why did he do that? He was terrible in that. Why does agents let him?
Well, I'm
play
trying
a
to stretch
role
myself.
like that?
I'm just trying to stretch myself. It's like, well, do that in a gym. Stretch yourself in a workout group. Stretch yourself in those places, and if you want to develop those skill sets, have it show up on a reel. But don't abandon what got you to where you got.
Exactly. And I know that sometimes it can get a little boring, and people reinvent when you have to. When things are quiet or things are slow, you kind of think, okay, it's not popping like it used to.
Yeah.
But when things are going well, there's something's working. Yeah, there's a reason why.
Yeah.
And so just kind of stick to what's working. But only reinvent when you have to.
Reinvent when you have to.
When you have to.
Carroll, this has been the greatest conversation. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming in and sharing your experience and your process and just your encouragement and advice is just really, really wonderful. And I think the audience is really going to enjoy.
Thank you.
And find a lot of things that they can keep out of that.
The voiceover business is an amazing one. And I'm like the biggest optimist. If you work hard and if you really focus and you connect with the right people and the right training, the right agent, you can work in voiceovers.
Yeah.
And also, I want to tell a lot of the talent out there, do it the right way. Get an agent. Get an agent. Book the good jobs. Get in SAG and AFTRA.
Yeah.
And really, be a part of the voiceover community so you could really, be a part of it the way you should be. I feel like actors work very hard and give a lot. So the minute you start booking these great jobs, you see it makes sense right away why you invested what you did into the business.
Yeah.
And that residual income is the gift that you guys work hard for.
Yeah.
So that's available to you.
How can people find you on either? Do you teach or coach at all, or do you have time to do that, or do you? I
do. I teach and I coach privately. If I get crazy busy where it's like a month that I will definitely not do it. I don't like to squeeze it in with everything else, but I do teach consistently and I also coach privately, and I love it because you're always kind of finding different things that are. Yeah. New and different about actors. I've worked with actors that were making a living in voiceovers, but something just changed. And they've come to me and they'll say things like, well, somebody said that, I might get something out of this. But I know a good amount of actors that I've worked with, things have changed drastically and they've booked some really good campaigns. Somebody booked a campaign that they've been on for 5 years now.
Wow.
And
fantastic.
Every time he sees me, he's like, I don't know what you did.
Thank you. It's amazing. It's such an amazing feeling as a teacher or coach to work with someone who goes off and you're like,
Right.
I take satisfaction from feeling like
Right.
I helped you get out of this place to there.
Right.
And it's a wonderful.
And sometimes it's just talking things through.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just reminding, the person that you're an amazing actor. Let's talk about all the things that you've done. And they kind of go, oh, yeah, oh, yeah, oh, yeah. Oh, and that too. And it builds up their confidence.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of gets them back to where they were at the beginning when they first got here. And before they were cynical and angry and, life was a little bit better. You got to go back to that. You've got to be you've got to stay optimistic.
You've got to.
You have to.
Negativity bleeds into everything.
Everything.
Your reads and your work and your relationships, everything.
Everything.
How can people get in touch with you or find your website? I know you're new on Twitter.
I am. I'm new on Twitter. I didn't want any ad agency producers to, see that I'm not a part of that world.
Yeah.
I think it's fun, and I've been doing it lately, and I think I followed you.
Yes, you did.
And the word follow, it's funny because it's following, but I just am like, hey, I'm out here, but I'm not going to really follow you.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's fine.
I can if I want to, right? But really follow.
Right.
But I think it's great. And a lot of actors that I haven't been in contact with, I've been saying hello to. And, it's funny because there's so much work out there. I'm seeing who's doing what shows people are on when they, message me back. And so it's been good. It's been fun.
Fantastic.
At Carroll Casting.
At Carroll Casting.
At Carroll Casting.
On Twitter. And Carroll with 2 R's and 2 L's.
Yes, at Carroll Casting.
And then, excellent. And then your website?
My website is carrollcasting.com.
Perfect.
And that's the deal.
That is the deal. Thank you so much for coming in today. It was just delightful to have you.
You're a great guy
and
so talented. Thank you for having me.
You bet. Thank you. And thank you for listening, and we'll catch you soon with another episode of All Over Voiceover. Peace. Thank you for joining us on All Over Voiceover with Kif VH. Please take a moment to review the show and let other folks know what you thought. And if you dug it, please subscribe. Follow the show on Twitter at AllOverVO and check out our Facebook page at facebook.com/AllOverVO with Kif VH. That's it for this time. You get what you get and don't get upset. Claim victory and depart the field.